My name is Michael Moore. I'm the founder of Black Achievers. I'd like to thank everybody for joining. So this is our first virtual Zoom event, so it's exciting. I see everyone's faces, it's pretty cool. A lot of familiar faces, a lot of people I don't know. So it'd be nice if in the chat box, I see you guys are chatting, but if you want to say what part of the city you're from, or if you're not from Cincinnati, if you can represent that city, because I know that people had passed the link around. It'd be nice to know where people are from. Other than that, we'll do a few polls as well to kind of get an idea of who's in the room. So a little bit more about Black Achievers. So we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. I see Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut. Wow. Detroit, Michigan, Dayton. Nice. See, Black Achievers, we're going nationwide. It's exciting. So like I said, we're a nonprofit organization, a 501c3 in Cincinnati, Ohio. So we have over 4,000 members in the greater Cincinnati area, over 30,000 nationwide. So our goal is to grow to over 1 million members. So we need your help to please spread the word about us to your friends and family. So our mission is to connect, educate, and empower African Americans. That's our sole purpose. So we envision an America where we own and control our communities, where we help each other be successful, and where we are proud of who we are. So the areas where we can help you and the things that our leadership team has been working on is networking, obviously. So we're known for networking. We have massive events here in Cincinnati. Now we're trying to move this to Zoom so we can reach more people, especially with COVID and the social distancing. So we'll continue to do that. We also are starting to get job opportunities from our corporate partners. So now that we're actually starting to partner with a lot of these corporations, they're offering opportunities. So if anyone has been furloughed or laid off during the COVID, we actually have one job opportunity we're going to go over later today at the end. It's they're looking for a senior business advisor that can work with minority businesses that are making between $1 and I think $10 million. So it's a pretty cool opportunity. I'll go over that. So I personally know the hiring manager. So if you guys are interested, you can reach out to me at michael@blackachievers.com, and I can get you in contact with the right person. We're also doing board opportunities as well. So we partnered with Flywheel. They offer you different boards that you can sit on. So we'll be trying to get more diversity on boards at startups that are in incubators and things like that. And we'll go over more details on that a little bit later as well. We have opportunities for volunteer with our team and be on our leadership team. So our next leadership team will start in January. And if you're interested in that, please reach out to me. We have developed a mentorship program as well. So we now are going to look for mentors and then people who want to be mentored. We have a lot of talented people on our team, as you can see, and they're willing to offer their expertise. If you go to our website, we have a virtual mentorship on there where you can ask questions and get answers back quickly. And then we've also stood up an investment committee. So we have an investment committee where we're offering the opportunity to pool your money and your resources together so we can invest in real estate deals and things of that nature. Obviously in the Black community, we really got to start trying to close the wealth gap and work towards doing that as a cohesive group so we can be more competitive. So that is what Black Achievers is trying to bring into fruition with our group investing. So on our website as well, we have core beliefs. So Black Achievers believes that, we believe in collaboration over competition. So that is a very, very core message of ours, is that there's no crabs in the barrel. We're not competing with each other. We are operating as a unit, and that we want to make everyone else around us more successful. So those are the types of like-minded people that we attract and we want on our team. We are also about economic empowerment. We believe that's the key to improving Black communities. That is really, it's not so much a social issue for us as an economic issue. We want to own and control our communities and basically pool our money together to make that happen. We believe that hard work and determination are the backbone of success. And we also believe, which is out there right now everywhere, is that racism is real, it is wrong, and it must be confronted. And we're an organization that exists because there is systemic racism. Obviously, it's in the news every day because of George Floyd, so we'll talk about that more later. But the point is that we have to have organizations like these because we're basically treated unfairly. So in order for us to be treated fairly, we have to come together and demand to be treated fairly and demand those types of rights. And that's something that Black Achievers is all about. So a few administrative items. This event is being recorded. It will be put on our website. You will get a link to it that I'd like you to share out with people in your network. Please let them know that we are here and that they can join us. It's free for them to join at our website. And if they want to, they can upgrade to a paid membership, but just regular membership is a free thing to do. And they can be in the loop and come to more events. This event's also being streamed on Facebook Live. So I think there was 1,200 people who signed up to see the event. So that's being done right now. So if you are on Facebook, you can please share or let your network know. We would appreciate it. You'll be muted during this call. So we kind of discussed that to keep down background noise. I think we're up to about 85 or so people on the call, which is a great turnout. Please raise your hand. So there's a raise your hand feature if you need to contact David, and then he can either chat with you back or allow you to speak. And if you have questions, please post them in the chat, and then we will send them to the host, and then we will collect them and answer them if time is permitting at the end. So our goal for tonight is for you to learn a little bit more about Black Achievers, to get some tips and insights from our amazing leadership team. We have over 20 people that we will highlight during this presentation, and they will answer some questions about how they're dealing with COVID, how they're dealing with the protests, how they're dealing with life at their work, maybe how they're dealing with homeschooling their kids. I mean, just the things that we're all dealing with being in this unique place and time, right? So you'll get those types of insights and questions. We also want you to meet at least 2 to 3 new people. So we'll be doing breakout rooms. In these breakout rooms, it's kind of like online networking. So I'm like a speed networking. So I'm interested to see how that works out. So you'll be paired up with another individual that's on the call. So don't freak out when that happens if you've never done a Zoom network before. David will explain all of the options that you have, but basically you'll have 5 minutes to have a nice conversation. Make sure that you connect with them on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is our platform where we basically are connecting with all the other Black professionals. So if you do that, we'll be good. And like I told you before, we do have an exclusive job opportunity that we'll go over. And there's like a couple other ones too. So we're going to start posting those on our website as well. All right, so that's kind of the introduction. So now we're going to move into the actual presentation itself and just the agenda at a very, very high level. I'm going to give a welcome message. This is going to be a video that I'd like you guys to see that we kind of put together as a montage to the kinds of things that we're dealing with right now as Black people in America. So I'll show that video, and then we'll break out into at least 4 breakout sessions throughout this hour and a half. It'll allow you to meet at least 3 to 4 people. And the participation is voluntary. So if you do not want to participate, once you're in the room, you can always leave the room and come back out to the main area. But hopefully you do take part in this. And then we also have a virtual roundtable that I mentioned with our leadership team. And I'm going to go over some other resources that we recommend. Okay, so these resources are other nonprofit organizations in the city that can help you or help people you know. And then we'll have a Q&A session as well. All right, so Black people are battling 2 pandemics. Right? So we have COVID-19 that came out of nowhere and really sequestered all of us in our homes. Very traumatic and overwhelming experience to go to Kroger with no toilet paper and the whole, gloves on your hand and mask. I mean, it was really, really overwhelming in the very beginning. Worried in my household about our children and my grandparents, even got to the point where we're scared to be around my own mother because I don't want to get her sick. She has pre-existing conditions. So just a lot going on, and I know you guys are going through those same types of emotions. And then on top of that, as if that wasn't enough, then they come out, a few weeks later, and they're like, "Oh, it's disproportionately killing people in the Black community." So it seemed like it went from bad to worse, and then our people are starting to die from it even higher rates than others. So we're dealing with that hitting our community specifically. And then after that, obviously, we all saw the tragic murder of George Floyd, where the man had his knee on his neck and he's just smirking and laughing and just emotions that go along with that. And then obviously the Black Lives Matters protest that we're living through now, which is calling for change. And it's just a lot. I don't know about you guys, I feel overwhelmed on a daily basis. So I was glad that we were having a Zoom so we could connect and talk with each other, share some ideas and go from there. So without me talking any longer, I'm going to show a video. It's about 4 minutes long. It gives you an idea of what's happening right now as far as the protest and everything that's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up, and hopefully you enjoy it and we can talk about it later.
I'm a young black man doing all that I can to stand. Oh, but when I look around and I see what's being done to my kind every day, I'm being hunted as prey. My people don't want no trouble. We gotta know jungle. I just wanna live. God protect me. I just wanna live. I just wanna live.
All right. So we're all George Floyd. I mean, obviously, it's very powerful to see all those images in one place. I know in my lifetime, I just want to share a few stories with you guys. So I grew up in Price Hill in 1980s where there were no other black families. So if you guys know that area now, there's been gentrification downtown. So a lot of African Americans have moved in that area. But when I came through Price Hill, it was completely only a black family there. And I was 7 years old. I'm on the street. I'm like walking my bike from the bottom of my street to the top. It was steep. And a police officer actually pulled me over. So he says, "Hey, Tyrone, get over here." And I'm like, obviously that's not my name. So I keep walking. He then pulls his car in front of me and stops me. And he gets out of his car and he says, "Where did you steal that bike from?" And I'm like, my daddy bought me this bike, for my birthday. And he goes into this tirade about, "Hey, your daddy can't afford a bike like that. This is a very expensive bike, and stuff like that." And he says, "Well, which house did you steal it from?" And at 7 years old, it was hard for me to process all of this, but it was very traumatizing. It set the stage for basically running into police all throughout my life. And I was the person who was raised, in the church, in school, I'm honor roll, I'm playing sports, I'm straight laced. I'm not in the street. I've never been arrested. I've never had any of those things that you would think would have, that would happen to me, except that I'm a black person, right? So at 7 years old, I'm traumatized. It's so bad where I don't even tell my parents. Like I don't go home and say, "Hey, Mom, there was a police officer, that stopped me and he scared me or whatever." I just internalized it and didn't even talk about it. So and that guy went on about his day and it had a profound effect on me, right? And then, just fast forward to college, I'm like 19 years old. Inside basically we had a bowling alley at the time. It was Tangerman. We had a pool hall in there where you could shoot billiards. So I was pretty good. I went out and bought myself a pool cue that had a case, right? So the case is long. It's on my shoulder. I have my book bag, and I walk outside of the pool hall, and a man just grabs me by my neck and throws me up against the wall. And I'm like shocked, and it's a police officer. And he says, "Do you have a gun in there?" And he just keeps saying gun over and over again. And then two other police officers come and grab me and take my bag and throw it down. And, it's this big thing and everyone's standing around and it's like, what's going on? And they're basically like, "Oh, you fit the description of someone who just robbed someone with a gun," right? And I'm traumatized again. So I'm sitting there. They finally let me go. There's no gun. They got the other guy, and then now I'm sitting there what to do. So I don't tell the police. I don't file a complaint. I don't talk to the dean. I don't do anything. I literally just go back to my dorm room. Don't really talk to anyone. Just internalizing more intimidation, more trauma. But as we know, either one of these, encounters with a person with a gun can lead to you being shot or killed, right? So, and then you're thinking like maybe it was because you're young or maybe it was because of your youth or whatever. But these things have continuously happened to me throughout my life as far as just driving while black. And in one story, just even a few years ago, if you guys know where Mason Montgomery Road is, like Fields Erdel, I think there's in that area, it's like the Regal Cinema. So it's across the street from Procter and Gamble. So it's a very affluent area. And I had met David, who's a co-host on here. I met him there. We saw a movie. We got out of the movie about 11:30, and we decided like, hey, we'll just walk around and talk about the movie. So we walk around the area, and then the same woman who saw us in the movie theater, because everything else is closed at 11:30, she calls the police and says that we have these two black men outside. They're casing all the businesses that are walking by, probably trying to break in, and that they are they look violent, right? So they're acting in a violent way. So she calls, then a sheriff, shows up, and he parks probably 100 yards in front of us. And me and Dave just kept walking towards him, and we didn't, move out of the way. We didn't try to go to our car. We didn't do anything. We started a conversation with him. And he starts basically accusing us of the same thing the woman says. Hey, you guys are being violent out here. Just harassment. I mean, it was unbelievable. Let's see your ID. Let's run you guys, see if you have warrants. I mean, just unbelievable. We're late 30s, early 40s at the time. So it's just unbelievable that could have escalated had we just had the wrong guy on the wrong day, or been in the wrong, frame of mind, and just said, hey, forget it, we're going to go to our car. I mean, we obviously could have easily wound up being like a George Floyd. And I'm telling these stories because I think it's something that I've never really talked about. And I think that a lot of other people probably on this call have never talked about it. If you've had run-ins like that, but you definitely know people in your life that have had these situations. I mean, we are constantly being intimidated. So as an organization, we have to stand up against that, because what happens is when people see that happening in the street, or it's happening in their personal life, it starts to affect you in your work life, right? So you're still working with people, and they're basically saying, categorizing us as, basically criminals or people who are less than them. So it's important that we're supporting Black Lives Matter, we're supporting protests to actually fix the real problem and not just ignore it. So I've ignored it in my lifetime. I'm 46 now. It just doesn't help. So stop ignoring it and start fighting it and start standing up for ourselves, and we'll get a lot more accomplished. So that's all that I have on that, but I wanted to share that story with everyone. Hopefully it helps shed some light on me and my background and what's happening in the world. So I'm going to go through some things for you to do. So what can you do to help, right? So these are some tips that we want to do as a group, and we like to have you as part of our organization do these things. So the first one is supporting Black-owned businesses. It is critical that we start doing that as a group and as individuals. Every year you have a budget, you have a disposable income, you have to set aside 10% and be intentional about that. Like, we were not doing that. Me and my wife were not doing that until about 2 years ago. Prior to that, we just spent our money where everyone else spent their money, but we were not spending it and saying, hey, how can we use this money to make our communities better? And I know that 10% tithe is something that we have been taught in the church, and there's no reason why we can't start to say, hey, as African-American community, we're gonna keep telling people to set aside and spend 10% of their money with Black-owned businesses. And what that does is that creates this circle of empowerment, which means that the more businesses we have, the more jobs they can create. And the more jobs they can create, the better our community will be economically. And the better our community will be, the more businesses can thrive in that community. So this is what you see in the Asian community, and Indian community, and a lot of the other minority communities happening on a daily basis. And a lot of it is happening in our communities that we should be owning those businesses. So as a group, we have to basically say, hey, this is our opportunity to pull our money together and to start to spend our buying power in a way in Cincinnati, in your city, that can make a difference. So what we did was we put together a Black Achievers Business Directory. There's a lot of directories out there, but ours is specifically towards Cincinnati, has over 300 businesses. So if you're on this call and you want to add your business, you just go to our website and click on the shop, and you'll be taken to the directory, and then you can add your business there. And we would love to have you there. People are using it. We've had success stories where people needed website design, so they went there, found someone, and they got help. So it is working, and we just need more people to use it. And it's something that is even beyond Cincinnati, has about 3,000 businesses in the tri-state area. So we want to grow that nationwide. So if you're from outside of Cincinnati, please add your business, and we can start growing it slowly but surely. But this is a fundamental thing that we have to start doing as a community. And I challenge each and every one of you to make a budget where you say, hey, I'm going to set aside $1,000 in a year or $100 a month to support a Black-owned business. There are lots of online ways to do it. WeBuyBlack.com is a great website that you can go to, where you can purchase laundry detergent. I mean, that's what we do. We purchase essential items that are from African Americans for consumers, and we just have them delivered. It's just like Amazon. It shows up. It's a great product, and I highly recommend you guys looking into the WeBuyBlack.com as well. So the second thing we need to do better as a community, or we want to do as our group, is make donations. Being philanthropic in our community is typically tied to churches. We do an excellent job. We outperform almost every other group. We're about 72%. But where we underperform is organizations like Black Lives Matter, the Urban League, NAACP, organizations like ours who are startup nonprofits. I mean, we need support for donations as well. And it doesn't have to be a lot of money. If you just said, hey, I'm going to donate $10 a month to any organization, that's $120. But if 1,000 people are doing it, that's $120,000. And the impact that a $10, $15, $20 donation has on an organization like ours is tremendous. I mean, you have to figure we have to have some type of income that comes in. So we work very, very hard. But to have someone just say, hey, here's 10 or 15 or $20, it means that you stand with our mission, you believe in what we're doing, and that you're willing to support that. And those dollars will start to grow. So I challenge everyone to make small donations, set aside money, and use our money for power and for change. And this one hits real home for me. I'm a new parent, so I have a 4-year-old and a 9-month-old son. So I'm living through this. I know a lot of you probably have your children maybe grown or older in college, so you've been through this as well. But you have to educate your kids on racism. It is not, my parents never really talked to me about it. I just learned it through experience. But when you learn something through experience, you just keep running into the same problems. And you need individuals who do this for a living, who understand the history behind it. We're going to start standing up a resource book on our website for books, a resource area for books and different information so you can teach your kids about it. And we're looking at it for our household as well, so they can understand the dynamics, where it comes from, how damaging it is, and how you can stop that from happening to your child. And a lot of children, as they're growing up, they're coming in contact now with social media and their phones at earlier ages. I have nieces and nephews that are on their phones constantly, and they're running into local news and news in general. And almost all that news is just against African Americans. It is all very damaging to your self-esteem. You're 11 years old and all you see is all these negative images of kids and people who look like you. They're not showing individuals who are going to college or becoming engineers or lawyers, all the amazing things that people on this call have done and gotten PhDs and written books. Those are not shown. It's always something related to drugs or something related to something negative, murder, all kinds of stuff. And they're coming in contact and they don't know how to process it. So as their parents and as older adults, we have to start creating a culture where we're teaching them, about what's happening and the propaganda that's really happening to only show the negative side. Also, make sure you discuss topics like George Floyd, which is revolutionary. Not in our lifetime have we seen anything galvanize all races of people towards change, right? White, Black, Asian, everyone is involved. And you have to explain that this is a life-changing event, much like in the 1960s where we had integration. And we're living in a time where there's a huge opportunity for us to make strides in this community, in America altogether, and ask them about their views on race. Just don't assume that their views are your views, right? So, I was talking to my cousin and they have different views on race than I do. And I was shocked. But you have to have those conversations with your children as well to make sure that you're on the same page and you're guiding them in a way that makes you feel confident that they'll be able to navigate college, which is the first time where it can become difficult, and then also corporate America, which has its own challenges that we all are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And educate them on Black history. So our history did not start with slavery, which, that's all they taught me when I was in school. They put you in at 5 or 6 years old and they started talking about you were a slave, this, slave, that, and it's overwhelming. They don't tell you about anything of Black history prior to slavery, which is unfortunate, but it's not their responsibility. It's our responsibility to educate our children on how rich our history is and how amazing our people are. So we want to make sure that we're doing that. And the sixth one is huge, right? So just because you put your child in a very expensive school system does not mean that's the best place for your child, right? So we put our 4-year-old in one of the most highly regarded schools in Cincinnati. And within the first 6 months, we had major problems. They had Black History Month, where, you know, they didn't want to show any books to a 4-year-old about how Black people are engineers or lawyers or doctors or any of that stuff. They just wanted to have it all where these African people from way back in like the 1400s, they had them swinging from trees, and I mean, it was just outrageously stereotypical. And we were like, well, why are you guys doing this for Black History Month? And they're like, well, this is Black history. And it was just outrageous. So you have to fight back and protect your children in the school system. You can't make the assumption that they are being treated fairly, and you have to take that onus upon yourself. That's what we did. So we're looking for more multicultural schools that definitely fit our child and our lifestyle better. And I would recommend everyone do the exact same thing. So those are the 3 tips that I think you guys can do. Hopefully you got some value out of that, and it helps you guys, you know, move forward in a way that's for empowerment. So we're going to start the Black Achievers Networking. Now I see from some of the messages that people are on calls, on telephones, so they won't be able to participate. So that's fine. We will break everyone up equally on a one-on-one basis and give you a question to answer. But if it does not fit for you or work for you, you can hit the leave button and come back out to the main room, and we will wait, and then basically wait the 5 minutes, and then we'll pick back up. So don't feel like you have to participate. We just want to try to mimic what we were doing in person on Zoom and have some interaction between people on one-on-one. So I'm going to turn this over to David, and David, you can kind of walk everyone through what how it works.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Wow, wow, wow. I mean, what a powerful message. Buy Black, donate, talk to your kids. I mean, and just like Mike, as a new dad, that makes so much sense to me. And that video, though, man, I mean, it gave me the chills, and I've seen it a couple of times. I mean, we are all George Floyd. I mean, we are all George Floyd. I cannot tell you how many times I've been stopped for no clear reason by the cops, and and I think the difference is I was lucky. I mean, almost every interaction, you have one wrong conversation, one wrong person, and it has the potential to go bad. And it's just always stressful. I mean, every day is just stressful. It's unfair, but that's where we are. And when I say we, and I think when Mike says we mean Black men and Black women. I mean, we are all at risk. We're all equally affected, and we are all going through this struggle, and we're in this together. So. But let's get to networking. So this is the DNA of Black Achievers, helping Black folks connect and network. The topic for the first session is how are you planning to thrive post-COVID-19? The way it works is going to be very similar to speed networking. Everyone is going to be randomly paired with someone else in the audience. In a breakout room, so it's going to be one-on-one. The objective of the breakout room is to get to know the other person by answering the main question, and then just chit-chatting. I mean, you have 5 minutes to connect and then exchange information. So think about it for the first 30 seconds. You quickly introduce each other, basically your name, what you do. 1 minute each to answer the main question, and then 1 minute each to maybe discuss connection opportunities if you have an idea of how you can help or where you guys can get there's some commonalities or something like that. And when the breakout room ends, it takes about 60 seconds to get you out of the breakout room. You can quickly exchange information. A few important tips. One, be sure to unmute yourself. And I'm going to hit, maybe I can hit unmute all to help the people who are on phones. I don't know if that might help. So I'll try that. And then you can always leave the breakout room for any reason. If you're uncomfortable, whatever, no reason needed. You could, this is all optional. Okay, so let me start the session. So I will first try, just because of the phone people, I'll hit unmute all. Everyone's unmuted. And then I'm going to create the breakout rooms. Okay.
Oh my God.
And checking share. There you go.
Hello.
Sending you
I'm also on the board of Black Achievers as well. I'm one of the board members. Hey guys. What's going on?
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
This is Evelyn.
Hi, everybody.
My wife's on here too somewhere. Let me see.
Hi.
Felicia Calhoun, Charlene Davis, Britt.
Still be in the room.
Hi,
Hey,
Nancy.
Britt.
Hey, Michelle.
Hi.
I can't see you guys.
Steve, hey.
What's up, Mr. Gus?
Hey, how you doing, Mike Brosville?
Tasha Love.
Hi, Devlin Moore on here.
Hey,
Hi,
Devlin
how are
Moore.
you?
Hi.
Thanks for joining.
Hey, Mike Smith.
Miss Moore, thanks for dialing in.
Doing good, man. Oh, Bobby Bean says she's muted. Unmute Miss Bobby Bean, please.
Where is Brenda? Is Brenda Tucker on?
We got so many that don't show up in the one screen.
Oh, okay.
The
arrows on the side.
Yeah, and it
See who's
depends.
on there.
If you're on a cell
there's
phone,
Bobby.
you're only going to get 4 on the screen. If you're on a computer, you can get about 25 on the screen.
Right.
Okay.
So Mike, can you share your screen?
Hello, Mia.
Michael, can you share your screen back?
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Mia.
Good.
Okay.
Elaine, I see you.
Hi.
So David, a lot of people are asking to be unmuted because they're muted for some reason. They can't unmute themselves.
We need to go. So Michael, can you share your screen? Let's get back into the normal screen. There we go.
Oh, man.
Well, we gotta talk to our leader. We gotta talk to our leadership team.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, we wanted more time, Dave.
all right. Come on, there you
Hey,
go.
look at his son. That's Junior. Hey, kid.
Okay, so we are.
Okay, see you.
Can you hear me, Mike?
Okay, I think we're back to. So hope everyone had an opportunity to connect. I know I was able to talk to one person, so the conversation went really well. Let me see. So let's go. So the next thing on the agenda is to meet our leadership team. As part of every event, we take the time to acknowledge our amazing leadership team. These are accomplished, highly skilled, smart individuals that take the time to meet weekly with us, and they help Black Achievers grow. So I'm going to read out their names and committee, and then we'll have a roundtable discussion per screen. So we have some specific questions, and basically I will have to find each person. But let me start. So Erica Foley, she was helping on the mentorship committee. Jerisha Moore, she helped with the marketing committee. Ken Best, the partnership committee. Rakina Bowman, she helped with the investment committee. And many of our leadership team had multiple committees. These are just the committees they spent the most time in. Kayla Carlson, social media. Tiffany Lucky, event planning. Wayne Sloan, partnerships. Vanessa Enoch, business. Michael Braswell, public relations. And Michonne Stiles, memberships. Well, thanks a lot for your help. This is the first screen, and I have questions. So let me go with Erica Foley. Give me 1 second. Let me find her. There we go. And unmute it. Okay, so Erica, how would you keep your job search active during the pandemic?
Everything that you were doing before the pandemic, you need to ratchet up during the pandemic. So if we think about networking, don't stop networking. The way that to keep it alive is to do some virtual cups of coffee, network with groups. You still have your target companies that you were interested in. Stay interested in those, join their pages, keep track of their conversations. With respect to LinkedIn, start publishing articles, republish one from Forbes or Wall Street and give your opinion on it so that your presence stays live on LinkedIn. And let's not forget the hashtags. There are certain companies and certain people that follow hashtags on LinkedIn. So you need to optimize that. Let me see my notes. And keep your skills polished. You know, if I have had 2 recruiters call me during this time, offering me jobs. And so if I had gone further with them, I would need to be up to speed on my virtual interviewing skills and certainly up to speed on answering performance-based questions. So my biggest message is not to get rusty and not to wait for the world to open up, but to continue to pursue opportunities because people are getting jobs during the pandemic. Hiring has not stopped.
Okay, thank you, Erica. Next is Ken Best. So Ken, what should you not do from a financial standpoint during COVID-19?
Well, the first thing you should do is, or should not do, is panic. So I've seen where a lot of folks have panicked and made bad financial moves, such as taking money out of their 401k when they didn't need to do that. Even though there's a delay in the, there's no 10% interest penalty, but you have 3 years to pay that back. And are you going to be able to pay that back in 3 years? So the first thing is don't panic. Think of it like this. If you still have money coming in, if you still have a job, then it might make even more sense to invest even more because the market is on sale right now. That's how you make money when the market goes up and down. So when it's on sale, you buy more for your money and then it appreciates. So that's what you don't want to do. You don't want to just cash out, because when you cash out, then you lose your money. You don't really lose anything until you actually sell your shares or sell your stock. You still have the same number of shares, for example. It's just worth less, basically. And it's going to go up eventually. So if you can stick it out and you're not close to retirement, then, stay in that position. Don't panic and, make a bad financial decision. Seek financial expertise, seek financial help, because no two people are the same. Everyone's situation is different. Everyone has different financial goals. So seek expert financial advice. And often that advice is free. It's at no cost. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks a lot.
Yes.
Very useful information. Like you said, you don't want to panic at the wrong time and lose
Right.
everything you've worked so hard to build.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's move on to the next leader, Vanessa. Let me see. Unmute, it's working. Okay, excellent. So Vanessa, give me a second. How do you sustain a business during COVID-19?
Thank you so much for the question, David. And I can tell you that as a business owner, the word that became the most important word in my business is the word pivot. And for anybody who has ever been an athlete, you know that pivot means that you've got to be able to go in the other direction, change course. So what happened with our business is that all of our clients, as soon as COVID-19 was announced and the world shut down, we became very vulnerable to that, where our clients all canceled within a day or two. All of our large contracts, our government contracts shut down, and some of those shut down to the extent that they won't be coming back. And so what we had to do is identify areas where there is a need. And so that meant for us providing products as opposed to just our consulting services. So we recognized that PPE was in short supply, as well as test kits, and we immediately looked at that market and began identifying where we might be able to supply those products. The other thing that we did is began looking at business models that might be able to survive a downturn in the economy. What's needed now? And so if you are a business owner or if you're unemployed right now and you're looking to get into business, we're actually a management consulting firm. That's where our services were prior to COVID-19. We are still a management firm, help businesses navigate these kinds of challenges on a regular basis, but this was no normal challenge. This was no normal environment. Ordinarily, when we have downturn and ebbs and flows, we identify new customers. Well, in this particular instance, it wasn't just about identifying new customers. We had to actually identify new business opportunities. And so for people who are out of work, that may be something that you're looking to do. You might be looking to get into business for yourself. I would say to you, do not wait. Even though the rest of the economy had shut down and may be slow in rebounding, you need to move quickly if you've recently gotten out of work so that you don't exhaust your resources before you have an opportunity to pivot and to move into something and utilize those resources in a way that can help you generate income. And so for our business, we have done that. We've moved into different spaces, even the human resources spaces where we were just training. We're doing some other kinds of things and looking to do some placement in that area as well. So we've joined forces with other small businesses in order to make those things happen. So those are some of the ways: partnering, pivoting, and identifying opportunities where there is a need for services in the midst of the COVID-19 environment.
Awesome, Vanessa. Thanks for sharing that. It helps to be, the skill set you have was very useful for when things happen. And I think just being flexible and being able to, like you said, pivot is a good skill to have. And if you don't have it, maybe find a consultant that can kind of help you. Okay, so the next leadership member is Michonne Stiles. How to engage your network during COVID-19?
I believe Erica pointed this out earlier. You need to stay engaged with your network. Immediately when COVID-19 became an issue, we knew that we were going to be leaving the work environment. I started reaching out to all of my network community to let them know I may just be available, to also to reestablish communication with them and opportunities. When you reach out to your network, don't just reach out to your network asking, making an ask. Reach out to your network and provide an offer. When I reached out to my network, half of them, I made an offer. This is what I can do. This is when I'm available. How may I assist you? And in turn, when those job opportunities become available, when those jobs are no longer posted, the decisions that are made to hire in behind closed doors, they're thinking about you because you networked with them prior to a job becoming available. When you're thinking about your network, look at your network whom you have not reached out to recently. Re-engage with those individuals. Which companies are they currently volunteering with? What board of directors are they? Ask them these questions. In an effort to diversify my networking community, I reached out to former college friends and family. And in doing so, I'm now going to be working with organizations that I had no idea that I would even be involved with, simply because of my network. Because of my networking community, I'm exposing myself to different skill sets that I never thought that I would have an opportunity to do. For instance, with Black Achievers, I never thought that I would be helping a leadership team or helping a nonprofit organization update their bylaws. Network, stay engaged. Instead of consistently making an ask, reach out to your networking community and make an offer of what you can do with them, do for them during this transition. Thanks, David.
Awesome. I like that. Reach out and make an offer. Very powerful. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Mike, can you go to the next screen? Okay. So this is the next leadership team members. Leandre McFadden, he's in the investment committee. Shenda Larry, she's in the partnerships committee. Michelle Murray, she's in the membership committee. Monique Johnson, she's in the mentorship committee. Quinette Brown, she's in the mentorship committee. Stephen Mosby, he's in social media committee. Lawrence Chappelle, he's in the partnership committee. Kimberly Lancaster, she was in the investment committee. Janae Broomfield in the marketing committee. And Jennifer Ingram, she's a special guest and she'll speak. I have a question for her at the end. Okay, so let me pull up Leandre's question. And I need to unmute him. Okay, so on. Okay, Leandre, what does post-COVID-19 look like to you?
Thanks for the question, David. What does post-COVID-19 look like to me? I can go in a number of different directions with this question, but I'll say that to me, I don't know if there will ever be a post-COVID-19. This disease is here to stay. You know, post-COVID-19 is akin to saying that we will achieve a post-influenza world. You know, we still have cases like bird flu, Zika, swine flu, and SARS. Those numbers just haven't made the news because, the numbers haven't made the news because the volume is just so low, but they are still out there. Now, in terms of answering the question, let me answer it in the spirit of the true question. What does it look like to me? To me, post-COVID-19 means that the number of cases and deaths decline and both remain low without spiking in either number. But regardless of where the COVID-19 numbers end up, what post-COVID should look like for you and I is starting to participate so that you are participating. And while you're dealing with COVID, your participation is recorded in the record. So let me explain. Because one thing is for sure, the world in which we live, it will continue to evolve whether you participate or not. But we feel good when we participate. Participate in Black achievers. Help us empower one another to build unity, in and around our community. Participate in supporting Black business to create opportunities for those that live in our communities. Participate in Black Lives Matter movements and other movements that you're passionate about, that seek to stop injustices experienced by African Americans and other minorities at the hands of non-African Americans. And lastly, participate in your financial future. You know, participate in your 401k. If you're already participating in your 401k at your employment or place of employment, increase your 401k amount. If your workplace does not offer a 401k program, and there are still companies in this day and age that don't, you can participate in your financial future by starting a Roth or traditional IRA at your financial institution where you bank, or another investment firm such as a Edward Jones or a Fidelity. You know, my background is in IT and risk management. I don't sell 401k programs, I don't sell IRAs, but my passion, like I say again, my passion is promoting self-economic empowerment and financial freedom to all that will listen, and most importantly, to all that will participate.
Awesome, Leandre, I love that. Participate in any way you can. Awesome. Okay, exactly. Next is Michelle Murray.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I think I'm overlapping with some. Okay, so this is, I love this question. So Michelle, how do you stay sane during COVID-19?
That's right, David. That was a question, and thank you very much. And then I also want to bridge on that question and say, how do we thrive, right? So some of the things that I've been able to do in this period of time. So I'm Michelle Murray. I have a project management background. So the first thing I do is make a list, right? So when this COVID started back in March, there were things that I have been not been able to do or just haven't had a time to do. So that was the first thing I did. I made a list, and I made a list that was in the area of, maybe I need to do some cleaning, things I wanted to read, things I wanted to order, and just different areas. All of us have different things and different focuses. Some people may be in exercise, some people may need to be focusing on finance, school, kids, whatever. We all have differences. So I can't, there's not a one shop fit all. But again, make a list, work that list, stay productive. The news and all the information that we are being bombarded with from the news media, from all our social media things, sometimes you may have to pull back on that a little bit. I found that to be helpful. I found that if I stay productive doing things that I may have been wanting to do, that'll help me get through this time period. And your list can be there as long as it needs to be there. Don't stress yourself out by getting things done. Look at it. You may want to do something related to cleaning one week and related to shopping or looking online another week. Don't stress yourself out about a list. But the bottom line, I think I want to express to everyone, is you want to be productive. And then this also is a time that you don't want to waste, right? So you may want to try something new. Think about reading books. I went out and I joined Audible. So, I have the Becoming book on my table, but hadn't read it, hadn't had the time to read it. So this was a time I was able to listen to Audible. I was doing some running and walking, so multitasking. So those are my 3 things that I want to express to everybody. Be productive. Think about doing something new in the area of education, business, or your hobbies. But then don't waste this time. This time is yours to use productively. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Michelle. Yes, that's awesome. Make a list. I'm a list person. I like, if it's not written down, it doesn't get done. So that's a really good idea. Okay, so let me see. Next is Monique Johnson.
Hello.
Yes, Monique. Okay, excellent. Okay, here's, as an entrepreneur, what have you learned during COVID-19?
Thank you for that question, David. I've learned a few things. I actually have a consulting business, and I'm also a real estate investor with my husband. We have homes, rental property homes, and they're all out of state. So what I wanted to share is our 4 really quick points that we learned as a result of COVID. The first thing is that it's important to be agile, and that's just another way of saying pivoting, like Dr. Enoch talked about. But being agile is very, very important. And what does that mean for me? It means that with our properties all being out of state, we transitioned our application process to an online application. So I want to give a shout out to Steve. I think he's on here, Steve Ayoha, if I'm saying it right.
Yes, you are.
Of True Concept Solutions. He helped me. I reached out to Michael and David about someone who could help me design an online application. So anyway, he was a great help, and supporting Black-owned businesses as well. So we got that process streamlined. It allowed us to go work much faster, and it allowed us to just expand. We also had to change the way we were showing our houses. All of houses are single family houses, so we had to change how we were doing that. With COVID, we used to have an open house and tell everyone come between 9 and 12 and you could see the house, so we had to change that process. So being agile has been very, very important. The second thing is the power of strong relationships. We've been working with the same realtor for 18 years, and it's been pretty amazing. We started buying rental properties in 2002. We were mentored by an older couple. We were interested, and they kind of mentored us. And introduced us to some other individuals, and we've maintained those relationships. We have someone out of state who also helps us, but we do, you know, we pretty much have a remote business where we are able to manage the properties from afar. They're mostly in Georgia. We're here in Ohio, and we hope to expand soon. Let's see, as far as multiple streams of income, it was a blessing to actually have that. We've acquired over 40 plus homes now, so it's always a good thing to have multiple streams of income. You never know when the economy is going to take a turn, right, as we just experienced. And then the last point I would say is, if you have an idea, or if you have you know, a thought for a business, or you've started something, you know, definitely pursue that. You know, this just started for us as a, you know, it was just kind of an idea, and then we just kept buying homes and acquiring more. So I just want to encourage those of you who have an idea, a business concept, to start and modify as you go. So that's it.
Thanks for sharing. And you know, and we spoke, and I know one of the things I thought was really impressive was, even though you moved to Cincinnati, you still kept your business going and you kept growing it remotely. It's just, like you said, the power of long relationships and not giving up. Those things kind of kicked in. So thanks for sharing. Let me go to the next on the list is Quinette Brown. Let me find her. She may not have made it. So next is Janae. Hi, Janae. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, David.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so what do you do to stay productive during distracting times like COVID-19?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first, my name is Janae Broomfield. I'm an admissions counselor for the College of Nursing at the University of Cincinnati, and I am on the marketing team for Black Achievers. Welcome, everyone, thank you for being here, and welcome. So what do I do to stay productive, I believe, during distracting times, and one, this being COVID? I think the important thing is just to realize that whether it's COVID, whether it's work, whether it's family matters, friendships, or whatever the case may be, we're always going through some type of COVID. We're always going through some type of distraction. So when you are considering that, you think about those things that you already do to get you through those distracting times. Specifically during COVID, I have found that taking breaks and not feeling guilty about it, and even when you are at work, sometimes you feel guilty about taking a break, you need those. So, you know, just stepping away from work is always a good place for you to be and something for you to do, so that you can just kind of take a break, recollect your thoughts, and make a list. As Michelle had said, I have Post-it notes all over. It's ridiculous, but these Post-it notes do go away at some point also. So I check things off of my list and I get things done. So writing things down, making sure that you actually have a plan for that day, for that week, that you can actually see, check them off, and let yourself feel good when you check that off, and throw it away or throw that list away or whatever the case may be, and complete that project and be able to turn it in. So I think those things definitely keep me productive, making a list, taking breaks when needed, and just making sure that you definitely have that balance, because I think sometimes we just take on everything because people somehow think we're superhuman, and we're not. We are just human, you know, by the grace of God, though. You know, he gives us more power, but we're still humans at the end of the day. So we just have to keep those different things in mind, to just keep your center, keep your peace, and do what you need to do to make sure that you are maintaining that.
Okay, thanks for sharing. I think take a break is so underrated, because I read that, you know, ever since COVID and people started working from home, the life-work balance has gone out of whack. People are working longer and longer and longer hours. It's funny because it's the exact opposite of what a lot of employers think. They think people slack off, and it's the opposite. People just keep working and working and working. So very good point. Take a break, focus, and make a list. Okay, so well, thanks, leadership team, and we have a special guest today, Jennifer Ingram, and here, let me find her. Second. Okay, excellent. Okay, Jennifer, what are some tips for understanding differences and reducing harm in the times we currently live in? What are some of the tips you would share?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, thank you so much, David. Michael, thank you for the invitation. I'm Jennifer Ingram, founder and CEO of Calibrated Lens, a boutique equity and inclusion consulting firm, right? I think that we all are familiar with diversity and inclusion programs. And largely, I think that we could also agree that they have not been the most successful when you look at executive leadership within many organizations. Additionally, I think it's important to highlight that during this time, especially, African-American leaders or staff within organizations are being asked by leaders, supervisors to share their experiences. And in sharing their experiences, I think oftentimes we start these conversations by saying that these are brave or safe spaces. But it's important, as Michael mentioned earlier, to start to talk about some of these things that aren't always safe that occur in the workplace. Things that we are expected to navigate and kind of go around as the politics or the way that things are done, right? You don't talk about certain things. Your hair a certain way, right? How can we have diversity and inclusion programs that still uphold this notion of inclusion that really isn't all that inclusive and allowing folks to show up holistically and be their full selves in the workplace, of course, being professional, but without having to hide or cover or, alter parts of your identity as a means of being accepted. And so with the work that I do, I previously served as Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the United Way. I've done this work here in Cincinnati. I've navigated crises around diversity and inclusion. I also led this work at Mayo Clinic and Henry Ford Health System back in Detroit, Michigan. And both institutions were ranked top 10 organizations in diversity and inclusion nationally in healthcare. But I can say a couple of things about current diversity and inclusion programs. They were birthed out of managing numbers and counting heads, and that is no longer effective. As we look at organizations that are now issuing statements in response to the murders of George Floyd and so many others, statements are not changing policies. Statements are not altering the internal procedures that we know so often disproportionately negatively impact Black people. Right? How many times are folks passed over or said, you're overqualified, when in reality, there was some nepotism or someone else that, they had in mind for a position. And so now organizations are starting to engage in these dialogues, but as we talk about harm reduction, putting people of color that are already in a vulnerable position. If you're the only in your department, you're the only one on your team, and they're asking you and putting you on the spot and saying, hey, we want to hear about your experience, that's not a safe space. So it's important that as leaders are asking, what can we do during this time? I've heard a lot of, people reaching out saying, our organizations want to be better, they want to do more. It's not just about investing dollars externally, but also investing internally. Investing in your people, expanding services for employee assistance programs that are culturally responsive and culturally relevant. Realizing that having a provider that may know nothing about your cultural identity may not be the safest space for you to heal. And so how can we now start to shift this paradigm from counting heads and having a diverse representation be an indicator for success of a diversity and inclusion program to starting to integrate this into how organizations work? And that's the work of Calibrated Lens. We help organizations enhance and improve their performance, their productivity, and their brand presence by authentically engaging in equity and inclusion work. No longer does diversity equal inclusion. That was the affirmative action plan definition. That was the affirmative action plan that we know didn't work when we look at the top demographics of organizations today, when we look at the boards of directors of organizations that predominantly serve people of color, but are largely led by white people. And the work that we do is helping organizations become aware of their blind spots and navigate around transforming their systems to produce more equitable and inclusive outcomes. There's a resource guide that we have created through calibrated lens. There are two parts, and there was a new segment. I dropped the link in the chat feature, particularly for folks that are asking, well, I didn't know things were that bad. What happened? Things never got that good, right? It was an illusion that we had made progress in many respects, when in reality we hadn't made the progress. In many respects, it was tokenism. You had a Black person on a team or a Black person at the top of your organization. And now we are getting to a space where that is no longer a definition of success of a diversity and inclusion program. So we help organizations and individuals in coaching how to advise your organizations when asked, what can we do differently? The resource guide that will be shared with you following this discussion will provide you with language to describe your experience. In recent and more contemporary times, we've had research that's been done to describe things and define things that for a long time were just anecdotal experiences. Anecdotal meaning you could say that this happened to you, but would someone really believe you? Right? The little small micro, as we call them now, microaggressions, micro invalidations that undermine your leadership ability and your ultimately your ability to advance within the organization if you speak out, and how you end up getting blackballed, right? We are putting language to these things now, and this is a pretty data heavy piece that you can share broadly. I would first advise you to review it. There are links throughout the document, and then there's a complete reference list of over 45 articles that you can share among your networks. Specifically calling out, if you want to understand the experiences of Black people, it's not understanding slavery and racism. It's understand how Black people live and expanding your view of us holistically and how we experience life. We conduct trainings on these types of topics. If you have employee resource groups, if you have, if you are within an organization, I work with executive teams to help them holistically transform their organization. Diversity and inclusion can no longer sit in a separate program or on a shelf. It needs to be integrated into everything that you're doing. And that's what we specialize in. So a couple of tips. One, and this is for everyone, right? Learn where employees within your organization are having disparate experiences and outcomes. Two, listen and consult with experts on issues of race and racism. I can't tell you how many folks are saying, well, my CEO reached out and asked me to lead a conversation on racism. That is not an appropriate tactic or strategy. And this resource guide that we've created gives you language to be able to describe how that could actually be harm-inducing. Three, understand that this is not a people issue. It is a systemic issue, and it's not just external systems, it's internal systems within your organizations. If you are not doing things like checking your talent pipeline, your talent process, your full talent life cycle for bias, you're missing the mark. If your interviewers especially at the executive level, are not checking one another and checking themselves for bias, you're missing the mark, and actively calling one another out in the process. If in your performance review cycle, you are not evaluating the language that is used across teams to identify where there are gaps in how leaders are describing performance of some employees versus others, you are quite possibly perpetuating disparities and causing disparate outcomes within your organization. And so the fourth thing that I will call out is that folks need to act based on what they learned. And it is not the responsibility of a staff person to drive this type of change within an organization. There are executives that are making a lot of money at doing this work. And if your organization is asking you to do it for free, know that that is not okay. Know that that is not acceptable. And again, my goal in having this conversation with you is you're already empowered, but give you language and resources to help you be able to navigate these conversations, and to know that there are experts like myself and many others that can come into your organization, facilitate conversations, but beyond facilitating a dialogue, help with systems level change. The last thing that I will add is that there was a book that came out by author Pamela Newkirk. And it was called Diversity, Inc., the Failed $1 Billion Business, right? It carves out the case that from a data's perspective, we have not made progress. Our current model is not working. And really carving out the business case, and that is the work that I do in reinforcing that for various industries and sectors to drive change, sustainable change. Not we had a program and the person left. right? How do we bake this stuff in so that it's not reliant upon one individual? If the goal is to have an inclusive and equitable and diverse organization, that is everyone's job, and everyone should be held accountable for that in some fashion. And that is the work that I do. So thank you.
Woo! Oh my.
Thanks a lot. Really, really, really good points. I think everyone's excited. The chat was going crazy.
Wow.
People posting. So thanks for sharing. Wow. Okay. So I think the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back into another networking session. So Mike, if you can move the, go to the next slide just to make sure.
Back.
We're back.
That went too fast.
Sorry.
It really did. The conversations are so great in the breakout.
I really enjoyed talking to you, Britt. It was great.
Yes. I enjoyed it too.
Let's do one more, Dave. I think if
so
everyone wants
fast.
to. We're kind of running out of time, guys.
We can set it up like
It's
that.
8.
I can do it here.
Yeah, I think this ended at, what do we say, 8 on this?
Yeah, we can do one more breakout if you want, but I think that's going to bring us to the end. We'll set up another Zoom. It went amazingly well, so we'll set up additional Zoom more frequently, and we can come back and go through the rest of the presentation.
Real quick, everyone, how long has Black Achievers been in existence? Because I'm just hearing about it.
2018.
Oh,
So
okay,
2 years.
gotcha.
2 years, yep. Please spread the word about us.
Okay.
It goes really quick, didn't it, Michael?
Yes, it does. When you have amazing
blew
people
up.
in one place. Wow. I mean,
Thank you.
We're gonna do one. Do you guys want to do one more breakout before we go? Did you guys enjoy that, or
Why not?
anybody just one more? And then we're gonna. So let's do last statements. Anything? Mia, you want to say anything?
I just, I'm thankful you guys had me on this call today. I haven't heard about Black Achievers until I actually got the invite to join in on the Zoom meeting. But, right now, like I said in the chat, my company is hiring right now. I work for ChinMed, but I'm a part of one of their subsidiaries called Dedicated Senior Medical Center. So we're hiring right now constantly. We're rapidly expanding to multiple states across the country. So, feel free to reach out for me if you guys are, unemployed or, currently looking.
We definitely will. Thank you.
Mia.
Thanks, Mia.
Welcome, guys.
Carrie Mack.
And I think you put your information in the chat. So I think if anyone wants to reach out to you, they can go look in the chat and they'll see your contact information there. Okay,
The
so
chat
for the
disappears
next,
when we come back.
Oh.
Yeah, we
okay.
may need
I'll
to put
be
it in
putting it
fly.
back in there.
So I'm going to do something a little bit different because whenever I do pairs of 2, sometimes it doesn't work out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do pairs of 3, and I'm going to add a little bit more time so that way you can have a 3-way conversation. If one person doesn't join, you can have a 2-way conversation. So I think I'm going to try to learn from the previous things. Okay, the next topic, as I forgot to mention the topic last time. So do you think that the current protest will create real change? So if everyone can answer that and then network amongst yourself. So I'm about to send everyone in now.